I continue to practice this, the practice, the series, the primary series every day religiously. It was my religion. I was very, very attached to it. I would say that I was addicted to it. I had to practice. If I did not practice for at least 2 hours, I was happier if I had 3, 6 days a week. I believed that I wouldn't feel as good as I felt. So I had to keep practicing because I thought I'd fall apart without it. With that level of practice, and that's all I did, right? So I wasn't going to the gym or doing other forms of fitness at that point. At that time, I was just doing primary series. Well, what happened to me is typically what happens to most people who do just that for a very long time. One of the first things that goes is the knees with that particular practice. So my knees started to hurt. I ignored it. Ashtanga teachers around me were telling me that you have to break your knees to be able to get into those poses. Those words were used by the most fanatic teachers from New York who I had up here. When I told them I was starting to have knee problems, they said, "Oh, that's normal." Oh, okay, so I shouldn't worry. No, don't worry about it. That's part of the change that has to take place. Your knees are changing. You have to go through this in order to be able to do those postures. I believed them. I wanted to believe them. After about 1.5 years of pain, like it grew and grew, it started waking me up in the middle of the night, aching, deep pain. I thought, okay, time to go to the doctor. The doctor did an ultrasound. This test showed I had a cyst inside my knee from friction. She said, probably the yoga. Why don't you just stop doing those postures? I said, good idea. Okay. Great. My livelihood depended on it. My studio was based on it. Every single class I taught was that. And that was huge jolt. It was like, boom, boom, jolt. Like I couldn't sit like this. I could only go this far for about 1.5 years after I would stop doing the poses. Eventually, it's all better now. But I began to ask people what I should do. Like all the teachers who were older than me at the time, what should I do? Does this happen to you? What have you heard? And the general consensus was that I should be doing hip openers. So I did. That's what they tell you. When your knees hurt, it's because your hips are too tight. So you got to do more hip openers. Okay, made sense. So pigeon, box pigeon, legs behind the head, like Baddha Konasana, Padmasana, all of those poses, long holds, really working on the hip openers. And the knee pain all went away. So that was wonderful. And my hips became very, very flexible and very, very open. And one day I was sitting at Downward Dog up on the stairs where I used to have the singing bowls, and I was playing the singing bowls. It was a Sunday morning. I went in early to play the bowls and meditate before the class came in. And I was sitting like this. I was sitting like this. I was reversing. I sat for about an hour in those 2 or 3 positions. And I actually said to myself, wow, your hips are open. It doesn't even hurt, because it used to hurt me a lot to sit like this. My knees were up here, my legs would go numb, like it used to be a big problem. So there I was sitting now, all the hip openers worked. I could sit for an extended period of time, very still, very comfortable, with no feeling of discomfort anywhere. I went to get up, and I stood up. I'll show you, I was doing this. This was now like 10 minutes after sitting. I went to do this, and I heard pop, 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 pop in my hip. Tendons tearing off the bone. I don't know if you've ever heard that popping sound. I'd never heard it before, but it was loud and it was brutal. I fell to the floor. I was starting a class. I sat like this. I played the bowl. I counted. I was really into counting those days, just like doing the series, not mixing it up, calling the pose, and counting from 1 to 5. I didn't have to demonstrate. Nobody knew. At the end of the class,